The Red Gold and Gold, the Red Gold and Bold, easy for me to say. Podcast is streaming live now here on a Friday. Remember, if you catch us via the podcast, you can be a part of the conversation. As many people are already lined up in the chat room as we speak, looking to get in on the conversation. Jeffri Chadiha from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. Chiefs and Falcons Week 3 is upon us. The Chiefs going to have to do it without Isiah Pacheco. Do we trust Carson Steele? An expanded role? Is he the guy who's going to get the bulk of the carries? Do they abandon the run? Should the Chiefs leave Kingsley Suamataia on the bench? Kirk Cousins had a heck of a day last year for the Vikings, 29 of 47 for 284, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions against the Chiefs. Chiefs did win that game, but what are the expectations from Cousins in this one? Chris Jones, what is his importance? How important is he to this Kansas City Chiefs defense? We'll talk about that. Why can't the Chiefs cover the tight end? I don't know. Theoretically, Pitts is a good tight end. It could be a problem again this week. Bijon Robinson, dynamic back. They're using him more this year. Will he be a problem for the Chiefs? Who steps up for that Chiefs offense? We'll make some predictions. Talk about maybe the flags that are or are not coming to the Kansas City Chiefs, and can the organization overcome all the trials and tribulations they're going through right now and win a third straight championship? We're going to try to get to it all right now here on the Red Gold and Bold Podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold Podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeffri Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeffri Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is the sports columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it. Get with Dave and he'll have you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call, visit them online, or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave. He'll give you peace of mind today for the things in your life most important to you. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeffri Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Off and running. The Chiefs 2-0 on the year. Maybe it hasn't always been pretty, but they've at least gotten out of the gate strong. They do it while losing Hollywood Brown. And, Jeff, now they lose Isiah Pacheco. Let's start there. He's been one of the more popular players for the Kansas City Chiefs in training camp. Of course, we're talking about Carson Steele. Is he ready for a bigger role now in your mind, ready to handle the load?
I'm not that confident right now. I would say that if you'd asked me, maybe 8 games into the season, I would feel a little bit better about it. But right now you're talking about a guy who hasn't had a ton of carries, had a big fumble last week against the Bengals, and his running style, even though he's a very physical downhill runner, he does not bring the same dynamics that Isiah Pacheco brings. He's not as fast, not as elusive, and really, I have to feel like the Chiefs are going to see a lot of light boxes in this game. He'll have opportunities to show what he can do, but right now, if you're asking me if he's going to be the guy, I would say it's going to be a combination of a few guys to make this work.
Okay, you think the light boxes as well, Sam? You think they're going to say we're not going to get beat by the pass?
Yeah, but I mean, the Chiefs have been facing that for years, right? I mean, so that's going to be nothing. Isiah Pacheco faced like the 4th fewest light or 8-man boxes in the league last year. So, I don't see why teams would change that now. Look, I mean, they don't have much depth at this position. It's a topic that we've talked a lot about. Having said that, it's hard for me to argue that don't spend high draft picks on running backs, don't spend major free agency dollars on running backs, and then say losing the running back is the significant loss. I think they lose something without having Isiah Pacheco, but I mean, I don't think Isiah Pacheco is as instrumental to their offense as their tight end, as their number 1 wide receiver, even as losing Hollywood Brown was, even potentially as valuable or influential as Xavier Worthy could be to their offense, or even their left tackle or the right tackle. I mean, I think there are several more key positions of the Chiefs offense. The question is whether or not anybody in their backfield has enough experience with what they want to run. You've got Samaje Perine, who didn't do training camp with the Chiefs, and you've got Carson Steele, who is a rookie and an undrafted rookie at that, who is first taste of the NFL, and then last week he fumbles. And the key word and you use this word, Soren, is whether or not you can trust Carson Steele. That's funny to use that word because that's a word that Matt Nagy has used often to describe him, is we can trust him to be in the right spot. But he's going to see some pass pro stuff he's never seen before, for example. And that's not Isiah Pacheco's strength, but it's totally unfamiliar territory to Carson Steele. Even if you want to use Samaje Perine as this pass down running back, you can't just run the ball every time Carson Steele's in the game. You're going to have to pass it with him too. So there's certainly going to be some question marks there, even if I think the value of that position is perhaps a bit overstated.
Well, let's be clear. I used the word trust because Jeff Chadiha wrote it that way. That was his topic for the day. So, Jeff, you're the one that phrased it in that way with, do you trust Carson Steele? What all goes into trusting a running back? I think there's a level of trust, but Sam brings up a good point. When he's in the game, it can't be run every time. And when he's out of the game, be pass every time. They're going to have to mix it up. And that's the real question here. Can they be diverse with him on the field? Or, what do you want to do? Do you want to run it well, but be weakened in the pass protection and the pass, catching part of the equation for Steele, assuming he is weaker at those things? Or do you want to be stronger at those things with Samaje Perine out there and maybe a little bit weaker in how you pound the run? That's kind of the choices they have to make, right?
Yeah, and really, when I talk about trusting somebody, it's really how do you affect the defense? And a running back affects the defense not just by how many yards he gets, it's by, hey, when you execute a play action fake, are the linebackers being drawn in? If they're not, guess what? Not a lot of room for Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce to make hay in the middle of the field. Can you avoid predictability in your offense? They were moving Isiah Pacheco around a lot more in the formations in this past season, even this year, splitting him out wide. Can you do that now? I don't think you can do that with Carson Steele on the field. And so, yeah, I think he'll be productive in some ways. I think he'll have some positives, but I think the net gain is that you're talking about an offense that has been able to have a plan B when plan A isn't working. And so for me, and you saw what the offense was like last year when they played Green Bay, it didn't have Pacheco. I can imagine it looking a lot like it did in that first Denver loss when they were up there and Denver played a ton of coverage and they couldn't throw the ball. It's going to be hard to throw the football now. That's just the bottom line. And if you can't run it or create the threat of run, the pass gets a lot harder.
Yeah, Sam, Kareem Hunt added this week. It was a big topic of conversation. Any chance we see Kareem Hunt, and could he factor into this equation?
I mean, I guess it's a non-0% chance, but I think it's a real outside shot that we're talking about him playing on Sunday night. There's some familiarity there, but it's not like the Chiefs haven't evolved their offense in the last 5 years. Like he's got some things to learn, and look, the Chiefs have some things to learn about him. They have to learn what kind of shape he's in, because all those numbers I mentioned on Tuesday, like there's some real questions about whether or not his body is still NFL ready.
Yeah, well, for sure. Kareem Hunt, take a pounding already, football shape. Can he be any part of the factor in this, Jeff?
No, I don't. I'm not expecting it. I mean, that would be a huge leap to go from sitting on the couch for whatever it's been, a couple of weeks, and not doing any training camp, not doing any off-season conditioning with a team, to coming in and taking NFL carries or just being hit, period. It's different if you're Joe Flacco and you're hoping not to get touched and you're slinging the football all over the place. But running back's the most violent position in the game. And so, yeah, I don't see where it would do him any favors, just from a health standpoint, not even from a productivity and helping the team standpoint, just to put him out there without having his body in any kind of shape to be able to do something. No, I don't see it happening.
Running back was a question. Sam McDowell brought it up all through training camp. Left tackle was a question, maybe one that the Chiefs thought they had solved after one game. We'll talk about Kingsley Suamataia, Wanya Morris, who's going to be at left tackle. First, we want to tell you we're proudly brought to you by our friends at David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. With David Starnes Allstate, it's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when your car is in the shop, auto replacement protection to keep you on the road in style, and much more. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. All right, Jeff, let's talk a little bit about Kingsley Suamataia there at the left tackle spot. Rough day. They have to take him out. They have to bench him. They don't want it to get any worse. Can he be fixed and ready to go this quickly?
I don't know what's in his head. And that's really, for me, the determining thing here. Like, what are they saying, not just in practice, but in meetings, in the locker room? I think he's got the tools to play the position, but he's got to know that, this is, again, I think this last week's game being a primetime, big, huge game was a factor in this. Sunday night, Chris Collinsworth is going to be talking about you. I don't know where his confidence is at. So if you put me to the fire, my feet to the fire, I would say he's back out there just because I think he's their best option. I think he's a better player than Wanya Morris. But do I think that it's going to be a better outcome for him? When you're talking about Matthew Judon, another veteran edge rusher, went up against him in this kind of a game, I don't think it's going to be better for him or this offense. A lot comes down to how they want to call plays. Do they call plays where they give him help? Do they call play where the ball's coming out quickly? That might make it easier for him. If they want to try and throw 50-yard passes, it's going to be a tough day.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's the more athletic player. I think there's a higher ceiling there, Sam. But, is that why we saw them run early? Lightbox, yes, is part of it. But was there a fear that the way it ended with Hendrickson was the way they thought it would end if they exposed him all the time? And eventually Hendrickson had him timed, had him figured out, had the snap count timed. A lot of people talking about maybe they could diversify the snap count a little bit, but we know they have some false start problems along that offensive line as well. So maybe remembering the snap count is an issue that they battle against as well. But, Wanya Morris, maybe not as much upside, but is he the safer pick against a team that you're supposed to beat?
Yeah, I mean, they ran the ball against the Bengals because the Bengals' run defense is terrible. But, when you look at I think there's a different answer versus who starts Sunday versus who is their long-term starter. Because I think they play Wanya Morris on Sunday in Atlanta. And I don't think that should be taken as the indication that Wanya Morris is now their new starting left tackle. Even though, he's going to be –
You're choked up about it, Sam. Come on, settle down.
Even though I think he's going to be their starting left tackle on Sunday. Matt Derrick phrased a question in an interesting way to Andy Heck yesterday, which was, is it valuable to potentially give a guy some time off? And what was illuminating to me is Andy Heck immediately mentions two guys that they've done that to with Austin Ryder and Larry Duvernay-Tardif, and that it worked. And so to have that recall that instantaneously tells me that they've studied this week and thought this worked in the past. This is the plan to go with on Sunday. But Jeff hit the nail on the head in this situation. Like, Kingsley Suamataia is their most talented left tackle on the roster. He has the tools that lead you to believe that if the Chiefs are going to hit their ceiling offensively this season, it's going to be with him at left tackle. We're blinded on where he is mentally. And when you go back and watch the tape against the Bengals, this was a mental issue at some point to where he completely abandons his technique and just starts panicking. And I haven't seen that very frequently from a left tackle. And they're the ones that are going to have to gauge whether or not that's the player they're going to see or whether or not it is the player they saw in training camp. Like, I can still see why they thought coming out of training camp, he's going to be a serviceable left tackle. He's going to take some time to grow. He's going to take his lumps, but he's going to be okay out at left tackle. But they didn't see the panic stuff in training camp because training camp doesn't have the pressure. And as Jeff mentioned, now it's Sunday night football pressure. And that's just a different animal. And so I think they give him a break. I think they throw in Wanya Morris for a week, maybe 2 weeks. I don't know. But it's also, it's an opportunity for Wanya Morris. And I think he has to know that this opportunity may be short-lived if he doesn't play well.
Yeah, I want to hit on this one real quick, Jeff. Kevin says work on shipping drills all week. I think the last straw, what actually got him yanked out of the game was he had help. He had Isiah Pacheco over there ready to chip, and he got beat to the inside. That seemed to be where it was like, okay, that's it. Listen, we're sending help over there. All you got to do is make sure you don't get beat to the inside. Isiah Pacheco is at least going to slow him down. You can recover and you can handle on the outside, but he seemed to forget even that he had help. Like, he was clearly lost. And I think, it is important to remember he's taking in a lot. He's learning a lot all at once and trying to process it while being as fast as he possibly can out of his stance and being ready for an array of tools that good pass rushers like Hendrickson have.
Yeah, well, and also not being, like a Donovan Smith, for example, having some of those veteran tricks where you know how to hold just right, you know how to work a guy in ways the refs can't see to give you a little bit of an advantage. This is all part of the process of growing up at that position, and we're seeing in real time why the Chiefs were so reluctant to go down this road, right? Because you're having to deal with, hey, our quarterback could get killed. We can't run our offense the way we want to run it. Andy Reid does not want to be chipping all game long, but it's a good point that Kevin makes. You have to adjust to what you're going to work, what you have to work with, and these are the limitations you're faced with. And he had to go through this. Andy had to go through this last year with trying to, adjust his offense to what he was working with as opposed to what he wanted to do. I would hope he would do the same here. But Sam also brings up an interesting point too about, like, if not this week, when do you put him in? Because next week's the Chargers, they're going to bring some heat.
Yeah.
And then you've got Monday Night Football. You got Monday Night Football in Week 5.
Yeah. And so where's the great window to get him back in?
And the other piece of it is of the 10 players who led the NFL in pressures last year, the Chiefs faced 7 of them on the edge, and 2 of them twice. Like, there is no let's get him some confidence football stretch for the Chiefs this year.
Yeah, and the schedule is difficult, no doubt. We'll talk about Kirk Cousins, what he did to the Chiefs last year. Remember, we're always brought to you by our good friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Get your seal coating done now before the weather turns cold. Weekends are booking up fast. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Jeff, we mentioned this at the top of the show that Kirk Cousins last year had a pretty good day against the Chiefs, even though the Chiefs won the game 27-20. Cousins on the day was, 29 of 47, 284, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. It wasn't Justin Jefferson doing all the damage. 3 catches, 28 yards. In fact, was that the game he got hurt in?
Yeah, he got hurt in the second half. Yeah,
it was against the Chiefs. So, but he's still Jordan Addison, 64, 6 for 64 and a touchdown. Kirk Cousins brought the Falcons back against the Eagles in getting a win. The Eagles helped a little bit for sure, but the Falcons were there to pick it up when they dropped the ball on third down. How much of a threat is Kirk Cousins to be able to stand toe to toe with whatever the Chiefs offense is right now?
Well, he's a threat if you give him time. And you saw that at the end of that game with the Eagles where he had time and they were down the field in like blink of an eye. And so he didn't have the greatest game against the Eagles, but I think that last drive was a huge confidence boost for that entire offense because they didn't play well in week 1. I mean, if you like every quarterback who's not that mobile, pressure is going to be the key factor. But he's got some weapons here that can give the Chiefs problems. So one is Bijon Robinson, who you saw the way they use him in that game. He's great runner and a great receiver out of the backfield. And then you've got Kyle Pitts, who's underwhelmed so far in his career, but so did Mike Gesicki. And he had a pretty nice game against the Chiefs, and you saw what Isaiah likely did too. And so I have to imagine that the Falcons are going to try to work the middle of the field a lot, and Kirk Cousins can make a lot of hay when that's the game plan. Drake London and Mooney, those guys are also good, but yeah, they've got some weapons here that make it an intriguing matchup for the Chiefs on Sunday night.
Kirk Cousins, is he good enough to get it done, Sam, even at this age and coming off a torn Achilles?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. But, our next topic with Chris Jones factors into this one because to me, it's how much time do you allow Kirk Cousins and can you get him on the move? In week 1, the Falcons looked like they had no confidence that Kirk Cousins could move anywhere. They only took 2 snaps under center in the entire opening week of the season. Last week against the Eagles, they decided that their quarterback could move, and they put him under center 29 times. And guess what? The results were considerably more effective. I mean, he was 8.3 yards per attempt last week. Like the Falcons offense, and I realize a lot of that is aided by that final drive, but their offense was a much smoother operation a week ago. And a lot of it was because it looked like the quarterback could move a little bit more than he could in the opening week coming off of this Achilles injury. But look, I mean, Kirk Cousins still has 1 scramble all year in 2 weeks. Like, if you pressure him, you can end the play there. You can force a bad throw, force a throwaway, or potentially get a sack. So it's the Kirk Cousins question to me is a Chiefs defensive line question.
Yeah, interesting. Jeff, let's talk about Chris Jones. Just how strong, how important, how dependent on Chris Jones are the Chiefs on defense?
Well, you watch the first 2 games and you can see that's, if you're talking about scale of 1 to 10, you're talking about probably an 8 right now in terms of he's the one who is consistently bringing pressure when he's not on the field. You don't see that same impact from the defensive line. And, he had some plays in that Bengals game where he snipped out a screen pass and a couple other things that didn't end up being stats, quantifiable stats, sheet stuffer type stuff, but they were huge plays within the game. And so, yeah, I think he opens the door for everybody else. He's taken on a lot of double teams. People talk about this monster game. He's gonna have a good game because he's Chris Jones, but the Falcons' offensive line is pretty good. They've got some good players, and Lidstrom, that guard, is an all-pro caliber player. So they've got some guys who can match up with him, or at least prevent him from doing the kind of things that he usually does to other offensive lines. So, but Sam said it. Like, can they create consistent pressure on Kirk Cousins to take him out of this game? I imagine you're going to see Bijon Robinson getting about 25, 30 touches in this game. Algier, the other running back, getting a lot of care. I think they're going to run the ball a lot and try to play action a lot.
Yeah, I think 30 touches maybe for the running backs overall.
And with catches.
Yeah, with catches and everything. I think the 2 of them together, and they do still use the 2 of them together. They don't use Algier equally to Bijon Robinson like was going on last year and got Arthur Smith fired, frankly. They are more focusing on Bijon Robinson. On the subject of Chris Jones, Sam, like, can they win if he goes down? Right? I'm not going to say he's as important as Patrick Mahomes. Nobody's as important as the quarterback position, but their pass rush, it does seem to all start with Chris Jones. Like, it's either Chris Jones getting the pressure, getting the heat on him, or it's the Chris Jones double team that allows somebody else to make the play. He seems to be at the root of all successes that happen up front.
Yeah, I mean, look, Trent McDuffie's had a really good opening 2 weeks of the season, but even talking to Trent McDuffie about Chris Jones, he said that when he played nickel, it was really evident to him what offenses did to Chris Jones, because he said you could literally hear the offensive line calling out signals to shade their coverage toward Chris Jones every snap. And Chris Jones obviously is upset this week because he got the half sack taken away. That really he should have shared that sack with George Karlaftis. But it's really missing the point, because what's funny about this is when he gets that half sack taken away, he gets the assisted tackle taken away too. So against the Bengals, his final stat line is 0 sacks, 0 tackles, 0 assists. Like, he's not even in the traditional box score against the Bengals. And I know Trent McDuffie was great on Jamar Chase, and he truly was. There was not a more influential player defensively for the Chiefs against the Bengals. Jeff mentioned that the screen pass he sniffs out, that sack play, whether he gets credit for it or not, he creates it. He drives 2 offensive linemen into Joe Burrow's face. He's got a scramble. Karlaftis gets the sack. The fumble play where Shamari Connor picks it up and scoops it up and scores, it's all because Chris Jones just breaks into the backfield and Burrow's got to scramble. And because it's 3rd down, Burrow won't just take the sack. He's trying to make too much happen. It becomes a fumble. It's the biggest play in the game in terms of win probability. Like, the influence he has on the game is difficult to measure within the traditional stats. I mean, he does lead the NFL and for interior linemen in terms of pressures as he's getting. It's just a reminder, as Chris Jones has this new contract, as we're all going to be judging whether or not this new contract is worth it, that these traditional numbers as far as sacks is not the best way to. I thought that game on Sunday was the best illustration yet, that it's just not a good way to evaluate Chris Jones' value, because he's been terrific in the first 2 weeks since he signed this contract, even if the numbers and traditional stats don't show it.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's been lights out and getting in there. And the run, listen, he hasn't been great, but he's never been great. He's paid to get after the quarterback, and that's the more important part of the equation. He's not awful against the run, and I think when it really matters, he does seem to bring it. And I think a lot of times you're like, well, why didn't he bring it all the time? Well, because he's 295 pounds and he plays in a ridiculous number of snaps. Like they really are asking him to do more than he physically can do. So at some point, you're going to have some plays that he kind of, for lack of a better term, takes off, right? And, he kind of, there's a little bit, I heard Lionel Messi. I heard Peter Vermees, Sam, you covered sporting, Peter well. And Peter talking about Lionel Messi. And I said, how good is Lionel Messi now? He said, when it's the moment, he's as good as he's ever been. But he said there are times that he doesn't have the energy and he doesn't have everything. So he kind of drifts, but his feel and knowledge of the game always has him around where it is. And when opportunity happens, then he's the classic Lionel Messi. And I thought that was a great way to kind of describe smart older players. And I don't know that Chris Jones, he's 30, but I don't know that I call him older. It's just you can't play all the snaps that he plays and go all out on every down. And I think he does a pretty good job of knowing when to turn it up. Jeff, is that what you see, or do you see a guy that's just chasing sacks, just hunting sacks?
No, he's not. He's evolved as a player.
Sure.
He's way beyond that now. But yeah, it's like if you're talking about taking on a double team every time you're on the field, that's 600 pounds of linemen coming at you on every play. You're gonna have to have some game plan to try to have some endurance and some resilience to deal with that. And so, yeah, I don't think that's anybody who's knocking him with the idea that he's taking plays off. Like, yeah, every lineman takes a play off sooner or later, just because you just can't do it. But if you're facing a double team every play, then you're allowed. I don't think it's an effort thing for him at all. I think that he's become a lot more savvy, as Sam just mentioned, some of the things he does. I think he cares about the numbers, like they all do.
He does,
yeah. But ultimately, he understands how important he is to that unit. Like, he's become a leader. I mean, really, you don't give him enough credit for that, but he's well aware that he is like the LeBron James of the defense. Like, people are relying on him to eat.
He cares about the numbers, but the numbers drive him, right?
Yeah.
Like they drive him to perform. It's not just, whining about different things. And he made it fun yesterday and was joking around. I mean, don't get me wrong. He said he'll appeal. He wants that half sack.
Yeah, he wants. There was more than a hint of seriousness in that complaint. Like he truly, and look, he is right. Like I'm stunned that he didn't get a half sack on that play. But I think his real annoyance, even though he can't say it, is I created that entire sack.
Yes.
Like, if you go back and watch it, there's two guys. The double team in that situation is not a chip. It is two interior linemen saying, you pick up this half of the sofa, I'll get this half of the sofa. Yeah. And neither one of them carry their weight on it because Chris Jones just drives right through them. And then Burrow's got to scramble and Karlaftis gets a sack and Jones jumps on him as he's going down. So I think his real complaint that he can't say is, I know George gets his hands on him, but without me, that sack doesn't happen.
Yeah. Exactly. Listen, if you're in an accident, remember our great partners at Northland Injury Law. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, Jeff, staying with your favorite, the defensive side of the ball. Why can't the Chiefs cover tight ends, and how big of a problem is that going to be against Kyle Pitts?
Well, part of the problem is just personnel. I mean, you're talking about going back to the running back conversation, we knew linebacker was going to be a thin spot too. And so when you're talking about Leo Chenal, Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquill, really Tranquill's the only guy who's got coverage skill within that group. And so when you have teams that are able to be in heavier personnel, or teams like the Ravens who are going to run it, you want to keep Nick Bolton on the field because he's a great run defender. You're probably going to play Chenal more for the same reasons. But that creates mismatches in the defense when you're talking about tight ends who can run and catch. And that it really is, to me, that simple. You just don't have the personnel to put on there at that spot. And safety a little bit, too, to be able to make up for that. I mean, Shamari Corner plays a lot in their their nickel packages in the slot, and he's not a big guy. And so you're looking at guys who are going to end up matching up with those players. And more often than not, you're going to see a 6'4", 6'5", 240, 50-pound guy going up against somebody who can't run with him or somebody who is not as big as him. And that's going to be probably the theme throughout the season until they get it figured out. But I don't think you can figure it out because they don't have the people to figure it out with.
Sam, you were there. I thought Steve Spagnuolo, when we were asking him questions yesterday, Thursday, as we tape here on a Friday morning, 10 a.m., if you want to catch us via the live stream, I thought there was just a hint of annoyance, right?
Yeah,
Spagnuolo asking, you got that vibe as well. Answer about the tight ends. He said, well, Justin Reed, got slipped. I don't know what you can do there. Get him better shoes. Okay. I mean, is that hey, I know Nick Bolton got smoked in game 1, but in game 2, we had a good plan and a couple of things just went against us? Or is that a guy who's not wanting to admit, is looking at tape going, I don't really have the answer, and that frustrates him, and some of that frustration came out in that answer?
Yeah, I mean, that's not the only problem is Justin Reed's shoes. Look, the Chiefs have allowed 276 yards to tight ends this year. Second most in the NFL is 180. Like, they are lapping the field right now with what they're allowing to tight ends. And part of this, the main part of it is exactly what Jeff said. Nick Bolton's not great in coverage. Drew Tranquill has not been good in coverage. Their safeties have not been good in coverage. Part of it is their scheme. I mean, they faced Jamar Chase. They wanted to give more attention to Jamar Chase. These matchups that other teams like, now they become one-on-one matchups with their tight ends. But at some point in that game, in the second half, the Bengals had decided, and they probably decided before the game, it just became more evident that they were just going to target that as their primary option on plays. There was a third down play where they lined up Mike Gesicki wide, one-on-one with Justin Reed on a third down, and they just went to him. It was just go get open. And Joe Burrow throws to him, and it's a first down. Like this, I know Nick Bolton gets a lot of attention for this issue, and like he's part of the cast here that should get attention for this issue. It's not just a Nick Bolton problem, though. I mean, Justin Reed has not been great in coverage. He missed all of preseason. He missed all of training, most of training camp, missed all of preseason. Like, I still think he's getting his feet under him. And that's, I guess, the optimistic version for why this could improve is that Justin Reed is usually a much better part of this solution than what he has been in the 2 weeks. But just look at what other teams are doing, and they'll tell you what they think of the Chiefs' ability to cover these guys.
Yeah, really. Sorry, right. I was going to say that they were able to get away with this in the Super Bowl last year because when you had a L'Jarius Sneed, you had him and Trent McDuffie could cover one-on-one. Yeah. So you could be a lot more flexible. Now you actually have to give help to the other corner because you're worried about him. And so that does create an issue in terms of numbers, especially if you want to blitz and do other things. So it's like, yeah, you've got to make up for one area over here, and you can't just devote bodies over here because at some point you're out of bodies.
I do. I think there's a lot of great comments, and I think all of them here in the chat room are pretty good. And if you bring them all together, I think they tell the story, right? We always want it to be one thing, and it's easy. Fix that, and it's all solved. And it's never like that. One, missing Willie Gay? Yes. From a depth perspective, absolutely. The next two guys behind him are not as good as him. Willie Gay didn't play every snap, but when he did play, he was better than, I'm drawing a blank. I got to go to the depth chart and remind myself who the backup linebackers are. They're basically glorified special teams players.
Chad Cochran and Cam Jones.
Cam Jones and Cole Christensen. Like, no, they're not as good as Willie Gay. That is part of it. So, yes, they do miss Willie Gay. I think this one here, Kevin talking about Justin Reed, might still be hurt. Yes, when he first got hurt, there was talk that he'd be missing 1-2 weeks into the season. Yet he's back and played in each of the first two games. I think that's
angle too, Soren. I mean, he broke a finger against the Bengals. Both of his hands had injury on it during the game.
Yeah. And I'll say this, Rhett says, has Bolton already lost the steppers? He's still trying to get in shape. Yes, he is. He lost the better part of the last 3-4 weeks of training camp. So no, he's not in the best game shape. And I think it does, and we'll get to this in a minute. Ruben says, hey guys, 2 weeks, relax. Well, first of all, we're analyzing it. I don't hear anybody losing their mind, screaming and yelling here over it. So I don't know if we need to relax. We're just analyzing it. But it is a valid point. It is just 2 weeks. And they are 2-0 with these problems. They have quietly dealt with quite a bit of adversity to this point, with Bolton going down, with Justin Reed going down at camp, with Hollywood Brown going down, now Isiah Pacheco going down. They are dealing with adversity, and they've been pretty healthy and haven't had a whole lot of drama the last couple of years. And what you hope is that they come through this and Reed and Bolton are at their peak when it really counts later on. And along the way, you pick up wins, and they are. Right. So I do think that's an important part of the equation to keep in mind. So yes, I don't think anyone's freaking out here. We're just talking about it. But I think if they would go down and lay an egg against Atlanta, maybe it's not the egg that we think, because we do need to acknowledge all the different things. Their left tackle is a question mark right now. That is a big thing when the offense doesn't have reliability at the left tackle spot. These are all things that they're dealing with and still beating the Ravens and Bengals. We can talk about whether or not, I'll get a little bit more. I maybe went too far on that. First, we want to welcome one of our new sponsors, Key Cannabis Dispensaries. You can get your keys to the Chiefs Kingdom at Key Cannabis Dispensaries. Unlock unbeatable savings and a chance to win VIP Chiefs Game Day experience when you shop at Key Cannabis throughout the month of September. In September, every $65 you spend will enter you to win. Save on product and qualify for an exclusive Black Friday Game Day giveaway. It's a win-win. Visit any of their 12 locations in Missouri to learn more, or visit keycannabis.com/sweepstakes. That's keycannabis.com/sweepstakes for full contest rules and conditions. We welcome our friends at Key Cannabis Dispensaries for being a part of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Are we making too much of these problems, Jeff? Have they proven over the last 2 years that, everyone needs to do what Ruben said? Just relax, guys. We got this.
Yeah, well, one, every team changes. And so you're never dealing with the same cast of characters. It'd be different if you said, okay, this is the same group was out there in 23 and 22 when they went through their own issues, and they'll find a way. I do think you have to give them credit, because as a team throughout this run, they have found answers, to whatever adversity they've had, going back to Mahomes with the ankle back in the playoffs a couple of years ago, to all the drops and everything last year. But this challenge is different just because you're talking about players now who are real question marks. I don't know if Kingsley Suamataia is going to grow up this year and be a better player by the end of the year. Like, I don't know if Carson Steele can be a legitimate threat, or Kareem Hunt, or whoever we want to throw in there in the run game with Pacheco out for 2 months. They never played a season for 2 months without Pacheco. I don't know if Hollywood Brown's loss is going to lead to more issues in the receiving core. I mean, there's just, in the past, the answer was always, well, you got Mahomes. But you saw last year how that looked when he didn't. There is a point of no return here. There is a tipping point where you don't have enough weapons, or you have too many guys who are hurt, or you don't have enough guys who are productive. And so, do I think they have the heart and the character and know how to win all that stuff? Yeah, definitely. They've proven that. But do I think this is a new set of challenges that could bite them over the next couple of months? I definitely believe that too.
Yeah. How about you, Sam? What do you think? They're dealing with problems, and I think Jeff makes a great point. They're handling them now, but what happens when other problems come along, right? Like that's the thing, is like, oh, it's okay. You can, the boat can take on a little water. Well, at some point it can't, the straw that broke the camel's back. There's always an element where it compounds, the injury upon the injury. Okay, we can help on the left side while we're trying to figure out Kingsley Suamataia or Wanya Morris. But what if Jawan Taylor goes down? Or what if Creed Humphrey goes down? Now you're weak in the middle and you're weak on the left side. You can't help in both places. Like, I get it. They're handling it now. Let's see what happens down in Atlanta. But it is an accumulative thing when stuff starts to build up.
Yeah, and the one thing I would add to what Jeff said is, I think there's just this feeling that the Chiefs will be okay because, first of all, they have been okay in the past. And the primary reason for that is, as he mentioned, was Patrick Mahomes. But I'd add something else to that, which is Travis Kelce. And we haven't seen Travis Kelce be Travis Kelce for the first 2 weeks of the season. And I don't think we'd have these same questions about what does the Hollywood Brown injury mean? What does the Isiah Pacheco injury mean? What does the uncertainty around Kingsley Suamataia mean if Travis Kelce had still been Travis Kelce over the first 2 weeks? I think there'd be something more comfortable to fall back onto than what the Chiefs have right now. I mean, Travis Kelce's healthy, and he's still part of this uncertainty with the Chiefs offense because, and look, Travis Kelce's going to bounce back. He's not going to have one catch, and he had a 41-yard catch called back. He was 6 inches from the end zone. He was wide open on the Wanya Morris touchdown for his own touchdown. Like, he could have had a much more productive day in week 2. The actual production was one catch, and that hadn't been the actual production for Travis Kelce since Patrick Mahomes, his first start with Patrick Mahomes. And so that is different. Like, there is a different Travis Kelce right now. And I think a lot of the Chiefs' problems in the past, I mean, they weren't great offensively last year. Travis Kelce wasn't as good offensively last year. Guess when Travis Kelce picked it up? It coincided when the Chiefs' offense picked it up in the playoffs. Like, they've always had that cushion to fall back onto. And for a long time, it's been like, what if that cushion isn't quite as comfortable? What happens then? And now we're in that stage as far as asking ourselves, okay, who do you go to? Rashee Rice has been considerably better, but there are still these other questions with the Chiefs offense. And look, I mean, the defense bailed them out last year, and we're asking some questions about the defense now. So, I mean, I think, but look, it all just makes for an intriguing season for a team that typically does find its stride and solutions late in the year.
Yeah, and that's I was going to add that point too about the defense, because at this point last year there was a lot of consternation about the offense and the way it was going, even a month into the season. And people, hey, we got a championship caliber defense, though. Look at that defense. You can't say that now.
You
so,
can't
all those easy answers.
You can't say it right now, but you might be able to say it, as they progress, right? Like, I do think, there was the comment that said, the turnovers. Let me see if I can go back here and find it. Give credit to who said it. Terry said, different game if they don't turn it over. Agreed. They had three.
Different game if the Bengals don't turn it over.
And the Chiefs were -2. They had 3 turnovers. The Bengals only had 1. And Terry's right. It is. And teams always preach don't turn the football over. But they were -11 last year. So the idea that this was a fluke one-off for the Chiefs, no, this sustains a trend that's been going on since last year, that they're not the best at taking care of the football. Terry's absolutely right. It is a different game. But then if we put our reality cap on, not that Terry doesn't, his point stands alone. That is a fact. It is a different game if they don't turn it over. And it's a different game and maybe even a walkaway win against the Ravens if they don't drop it. But for 2 years, they've been dropping it. For 2 years, they've been turning it over. So the question is, can they get away from that? That's why we talk about this. Ruben's original point, it's 2 games, relax. Yes, especially since you're 2-0. But these are things that are building up. And if you, like I said, lose one more player, we mentioned Chris Jones. If you lose Chris Jones, and now you say, oh, well, that's okay, we'll put it on Pat. We got to boat race people. Can they boat race people? Not with drops and turnovers, they can't.
Yeah. Well, and look, and I always try to remind people of this when you're talking about following a dynasty, and dynasties don't last forever for one simple reason in this league. It's very hard to hold on to great players forever. And as you begin to lose great players, when you lose the Tyreek Hills or the L'Jarius Sneed or the Travis Kelce slow down, it's hard to go find Hall of Fame caliber players or all pro caliber players to fill those voids. This is what most of the teams in the league deal with every year, what the Chiefs are dealing with. Injuries, guys who aren't playing well, guys you thought, could be difference makers who aren't, guys who've been good, who are now starting to decline. Like, this is what it looks like. And so, do they have enough to make it work? And they're going to be a playoff team. They're probably going to win the AFC West. All these things are going to happen. But that standard, it's hard for fans, even media, to understand that it's not always going to be A+. A lot of times it's going to be B, B-, and you find a way to pull it out. And that's where they are as a team right now.
And getting to the B+ is a different route. I think that's what confuses a lot of people too, because you do have the same head coach, you've got the same quarterback, you've got the same defensive coordinator, and I think a lot of people think, okay, your route to getting to a Super Bowl is going to be the same because those pieces are consistent. What's been most impressive about this Chiefs era is that they've used different ways to win. Yeah. And that's what we're talking about now, is not that the Chiefs cannot win. I still think they're the favorite to win. It's pointing out that it's not only going to have to be different than a year ago, it's perhaps going to have to be different than we anticipated even going into the season.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. We're always brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, celebrating 30 years in business, and David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff, as well as your motorcycle, boat, ATV, and you name it. Get with Dave, and he'll get you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations: North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. he'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems? They've been making them disappear in KC since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your lot as safe as possible. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, let's talk a little bit about penalties. There's a big thing about the Chiefs getting all the calls, right? There was even a story, I think somebody in Buffalo, or maybe it's just a tweet from a Buffalo writer who pointed out that the Chiefs have had, or Patrick Mahomes had 18 interceptions taken off the board because of penalties, right? In other words, he throws a pick and, oh, here's the flag to bail out the NFL's wonder boy is the assertion that's going on. This picked up momentum. Listen, we've seen this with Tom Brady when Tom Brady and the Patriots were dominating, that everyone starts to say it's fixed. This is who the league wants into it. The interception thing, though, I think is interesting because I'd have to go back and look, and I mentioned this to Mike Sando, who comes on with us on the program. He said he was going to go back and watch all of them and see. I mean, that'll take some time. I could do it too with the NFL Plus. You know,
You have a family.
Yeah, I know. You guys. It's great stuff that your company puts out there, Jeff. NFL.com. I highly recommend it if you're a football nerd. You can do it, but you're gonna have to go back through all the box scores, find the plays, then go back and zoom through on a stream to where it is. God bless him if he can go back and watch them all. My recollection is that there are at least quite a few of them that Patrick Mahomes sees somebody jump. He sees the flag and he takes a shot. Or he sees somebody maybe being held and he's going to throw at that person and try to get the call. That part of this, at least, and I would say at least half of it, is his acumen and awareness as a quarterback. What's your reaction when you hear this stat being thrown around?
Well, sorry to interrupt, but I don't know if you guys saw this, but because Bill Barnwell did break down exactly what the flags were.
Okay, I didn't. What did he come up with?
Yeah, for ESPN. And so let me pull it up here. So there's been 17 wiped off, or 17 penalties. One did not negate the interception because it was during the return.
Okay.
So 16 of these have been wiped off. Exactly half of them are offsides penalties. So that's what you're talking about, sir. And that leaves 8 judgment calls. As Barnwell points out, Patrick Mahomes has thrown more passes than any quarterback over this time span. Theoretically, he should lead in all these stats. He should lead in yards. He should lead in touchdowns. He should lead in incompletions as well as completions because he's had more instances in which this could have arrived. So he looked at just like the rate of, okay, so there's been 8 interceptions called back and how many pass attempts you throw. And as he points out, Joe Burrow has a higher rate because he's thrown fewer passes, but he's had 6 of these called back that have been these judgment calls, DPI, illegal contact, that sort of thing, to where maybe it's not in the quarterback's mind that this is going to be a free play, as the 8 offsides probably were. Now, the offsides are not guaranteed to be in the quarterback's mind that it's good, but usually that is the case. We've seen Patrick Mahomes intentionally bait people offsides to try and get that free play that they allow less frequently. So that's the context in which this should be measured. It's the context that, like I said, Bill Barnwell for ESPN provided this week.
Yeah. What's your reaction, Jeff?
One, I've seen a lot of Chiefs. I think I've seen all their games since Patrick Mahomes has played. It's hard for me to sit back and say I can remember a game that was one that turned on a play like this. I think he's probably thrown more interceptable passes where guys have dropped them. I've seen a lot of that in key moments. But no, I don't really. When I heard the story, I just felt like one that was pass interference on Sunday, clearly, and I couldn't remember a moments in games where this was a real factor. And really, look, I would encourage that writer, fly to Kansas City, get an Airbnb for a week or two, watch some Chiefs games, and I guarantee you, you'll come away feeling like the Chiefs fans think every flag thrown is going against them.
Right.
We have that conversation all the time about phantom penalty flags being thrown. I just think it's one of those situations where people I've said this before, people create way too much noise around officiating. And in the end of the day, it always balances out. I think you get bad calls on both sides, you get good calls on both sides. and that's where it comes to. But as far as like his overall interceptions and penalties being called back, even if it were true, I just can't think of any that really have impacted games.
What was the most impactful call in the NFL, or the most scrutinized call in the NFL last year? To me, the call that nationally was talked about more than any other was Kadarius Toney's offside.
Oh yeah.
And that negated a potential Chiefs win. It negated a go-ahead touchdown in the final 2 minutes.
Wow.
The other call that we scrutinized a ton was Marquez Valdez-Scantling got, the same draped over the back in Green Bay in the final 2 minutes, and it wasn't called.
Well, let's also remember the guy who started the craze about lining up in the backfield was Jawan Taylor, who was flagged incessantly in their opening win against the Lions, got them off to a bad start, and they subsequently lost that game.
Great point. I mean, they had the
it's already balancing out.
They had the offensive player that led the NFL in penalties last year. They had the defensive player who led the NFL in penalties last year. Like, the moral of this story is what Jeff said. Like, referees miss a lot of calls. Sometimes they go against you, sometimes they go for you. And I think the team that wins a lot of games, you're less likely to scrutinize those calls because you won the game anyway.
Yeah. Well, and that Sunday game, Rashee Rice was involved in 2 plays where the guy ran over his back. It was a much lesser play, but it was still pass interference. They didn't call it.
Yeah, and you're talking about that more if you lose the game.
Yep.
And so I think it's just automatically going to seem like it's favoring the better team, because when there's calls in every game that impact the game, okay, it helps the team that won. Those are the calls you analyze, or the ones that assisted the team that won, and the Chiefs win a lot of football games.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's talk about who's going to win this game and why. What are the keys? Where do you want to start with? What's the key to victory for a Kansas City Chiefs win, Jeff?
Well, the key is on offense. On defense, controlling Bijon Robinson and not allowing the tight ends to go crazy. And on offense, it is really trying to find ways to attack without some key weapons in place. The Falcons defense is pretty decent. They've got really good safety play with Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates back there. AJ Terrell's a really good corner. Adding Judon helps them out a lot. So I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I think it's going to be, if the Chiefs get to 20, that'd be a big accomplishment. I think it's an upset. I'd love to pick the upset here, but I just can't do it given the pedigree right now. But so I'll go Falcons. I think I'll go Chiefs 2017. 20-17.
Okay, getting to 20 that's a big statement right there. And the biggest key to the game is what now? Which one's the number?
I think stopping Bijon Robinson and not letting Kyle Pitts go crazy on defense, and on offense trying to find a way to move the football without Pacheco and really without a really viable compliment to Rashee Rice right now.
Yeah. Okay. Sam, what do you see? What are the keys in this, and what's your prediction?
Defensively, I agree with Jeff. I mean, it's about what you can do with Bijon Robinson. He's avoided tackles on like 3 out of every 8 potential tackles, which is the second highest rate in the league. Like, he's been really tough to bring down this year. And part of it obviously is elusivity, not just like running over guys. Offensively, though, like, there's an interesting potential matchup to exploit to me for the Chiefs, which is the Falcons have been by far the worst team in the NFL this year guarding the middle of the field. And it's interesting because of the safeties that Jeff mentioned. Like, it's a spot where they've improved with Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates, like potentially their biggest weakness a year ago. But they've been awful DVOA-wise guarding over the middle of the field. And the Chiefs' best 2 weapons exploit the middle of the field with Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice. And so I wonder if the Falcons, because they know this has been a difficulty for them, the same way we've talked about the Chiefs and defending tight ends, are going to have to shed more numbers that way. And if that happens, maybe you do get the one-on-one with Xavier Worthy, down the field. As much as the national conversation has been about cover 2, maybe the Falcons have to use a robber situation with some of their safeties to help out over the middle of the field. But because of that, I think that sways me towards the Chiefs. I think that's an exploitable matchup, and there's no team better to exploit it. And so I've got 24-20 Chiefs.
Okay. 3.5 points is the spread. So, Jeff, you're basically picking Atlanta to cover. with your number. Sam, you're picking the Chiefs to cover. Each of you right on that half point line. Listen, I talked with Chris Domino down in Atlanta, covers the Falcons. Does sports talk down there, and he expects a steady diet of Travis Kelce. He talked about the soft middle for the Falcons, and he thinks we're going to see a lot of Travis Kelce. I do too. And so I think that's going to be the Chiefs going to have to be effective there. And with Rashee Rice, I think it's a pound the body and the head will die type of game. I think you pound away with Steele, you force them into some bigger numbers, you take advantage of the guys underneath. And then I expect in the second half a Xavier Worthy big play, some kind of over the top that puts it away. So I'm going to take the Chiefs 27-17. Give me the cover. I think 2017, I think Jeff is right until the last big play comes for the Kansas City Chiefs to knock out the Atlanta Falcons, and the Chiefs go to 3-0. Listen, I want to thank everybody for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Remember, we stream live right now, 9:30 on Tuesday, 9:30 p.m. on Tuesday evenings, 10 a.m. on Friday mornings, taking care of the wrap-up. And then, of course, the look ahead. And, of course, we're always brought to you by our friends at David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David's got you covered. You can call his crew at 816-781-7331. We're brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot, online at GannAsphalt.com. Northland Injury Law, if you've got a case, text HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. Remember, the choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. And then welcome to one of our newest sponsors, Key Cannabis Dispensaries. Unlock unbeatable savings and a chance to win a VIP Chiefs game day experience when you shop at Key Cannabis throughout the month of September. In September, every $65 you spend will enter you to win. Visit any of their 12 locations in Missouri to learn more, or visit keycannabis.com/sweepstakes. That's key, K-E-Y, keycannabis.com/sweepstakes for full contest rules and conditions. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, for Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, my name is Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red Gold